And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Hoops HD Bracket Rundown, the show where we build our seed list, at least, not the full bracket. Joining us this evening for the Bracket Rundown, first of all, is John. John, welcome back.
Nice to meet you guys again. Was happy to let you know that because of my work, I happened to be in the heart of NJIT country earlier in this week,
All
and
right.
we'll be debuting some NJIT apparel for the next podcast.
Oh, sweet.
Oh,
Ooh,
John,
the
awesome,
people's
John.
team. The people's team.
You didn't have to catch a game, did you?
No, I did not have
Uh,
time.
they got a big one coming up on
Huge.
this Saturday where they're trying to clinch their winning record for the season, but
I
that
hope they
that was
score
for
this
under the
thing.
radar shows, I think. But
Yeah.
also with us, sort of, is David Griggs. David, where are you, and why can't we see you?
Well, I mean, as you recall, last night at your bourbon tasting, well, it all started. We were going to the bourbon tasting, and the directions you gave me were just blatantly wrong. But it's as if you wanted me to end up somewhere else or not find it. But bourbon was awesome, and I was awesome in drinking and telling all kinds of great stories and giving out all kinds of great insights. And then that guy, he just said, "Shut up. We don't care about Kansas versus Missouri, and we don't care about 10 miles, and I think you've had enough." Well, I didn't have to listen to that, and I just kind of went off on him. It's kind of a blur. And I was just yelling at him about how this wasn't his house. It turns out it was his house. But anyway, you remember the commotion, and then here I am again.
Well, David,
Yeah.
in lieu of us having you in jail
This is my one phone call, by the way.
and not able to broadcast with us again anymore, uh, is this? Are you? I thought we had a little bit of self-imposed probation here as well.
I don't know. I did well. Self-imposed is, and you imposed it. I actually
Well,
had a great time. I can't wait till the next one.
speaking of self-imposed probations, though, we do want to break I mean, obviously, the news yesterday and today has been Syracuse has self-imposed a postseason ban on themselves. Uh,
They're in my S curve anyway.
in your S curve anyway. But
Yes.
yeah, because of the self-imposed ban, they're not going to play in the NCAA tournament. They are not going to play in the ACC tournament either. Meaning there will be one less game in the ACC tournament, and there's going to have to be some refunds for some ticket sales there too. Not very good. I don't think the ACC is very happy about that at the moment. But um,
Well, you can thank their friends at the University of Miami football for giving them some ideas on how to ban yourself from postseason play, knowing that your team is not good enough to qualify.
that's pretty much it. And I think personally, I think it's a bit of a farce here to say, oh, we're not going to make the tournament any this way this year. We're going to be a lot better last year. So let's just choose when our probation is. If I was the
Well, yeah.
NCAA, I'd whack them next year too.
Well, yeah, and it is kind of a case of, let's do it now so we get time already served. But Syracuse was not out of the NCAA picture by any stretch. I mean, they were at least near the bubble, if not inside of it or right on it. So, I mean, I thought they still had a reasonable chance of getting in. But again, they're not as good as we're used to seeing them. They probably wouldn't have done very well once they got in, and their chances of getting in next year are much, much better. I mean, that is, of course, if they're allowed to be. I think this will probably be it. I think they'll get smacked with maybe some recruiting restrictions, and they might lose a scholarship, but I don't see them getting a 2-year ban.
I'd agree with you. I just think it is a bit of a farce here for teams to be able to choose when they want their postseason ban, and that's not the way the penalties are supposed to work, I don't think. Southern Miss doing the same thing, I think, this year.
Yeah, well, Southern Miss, I mean, they ran the risk of not making the CUSA tournament anyway, much less the NCAA. That's like me banning myself from winning the lottery this week.
That's good news if you're a Marshall fan, though, because their chances of qualifying for Conference USA just got a lot easier.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I want to get into what we're going to do tonight. As you can see there, every time John talks, and we can pull right up on the screen here. This is our 1 through 68 or so S curve. We're not going to actually bracket on tonight's show. What we're going to do is we're going to build this S curve, have every team 1 through 68 ranked.
And then bracket them. The bracket will be posted tomorrow.
Yeah, sometime tomorrow morning I'll actually get the bracket up. We're not going to do that on the air. That would double or triple the length of this show. And
Yeah.
well, we're going to start doing that later on in the season. We're not quite far enough in the season and not quite drunk enough to do that tonight.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm not. They don't give you alcohol in here. They lock you up. They don't let you out. I mean, fortunately, they give you a television and a phone. But
well, I can see here
you
already.
got to get me out of here.
We already have the number 1 overall team in there, crossed out Kentucky. And as they will remain crossed out in any bracket that I'm involved with for the rest of the season because of their failure to play next season's game against UTEP at Cole Fieldhouse, which would have been an incredible event to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the most important college basketball game ever played.
Yeah.
Shame on you, Kentucky.
Yes.
But anyhow, I'll start with you, John. Who do you have as number 2 overall?
I have Kansas number 2 overall. Even though their
Crazy.
record is not as gaudy as Virginia, they do have, I think, 9 total wins in the top 25 and top 50 RPI overall.
Yeah, but not all wins are created equal. Let's look at Virginia's wins at. I mean, again, they've won at VCU, at Notre Dame. The places they have won, no one else has. So, I mean, those are like top 10 caliber wins, not just top 50.
Yeah. I mean, Virginia has wins at Maryland, at VCU, at Notre Dame, at North Carolina. Those are their only top 50 wins, but they are all, against teams that are protected. When you go to Kansas, the other problem I have with Kansas's profile is 3 losses versus Virginia's only 1. And one of those losses is that game at Temple that they just didn't bother showing up. They got their asses kicked.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, that was back in December, the game against Temple at least. But thanks to the Big 12, Kansas has the number 1 overall strength of schedule, and even in the non-conference, they were 2nd overall.
I don't have a seed list, but if I did, I wouldn't even have Kansas up on the 1 line yet.
I mean, Kansas here, their best wins at Baylor, at Texas, neutral court over Utah. I agree with David. I don't think they're the quality of wins that Virginia has. And yes, I mean, when we get to the bubble, 1 loss at Temple, not that big of a deal. I'd agree with that. But when you're talking about a 1 seed, 1 game like that is enough to knock you off of the line or at least down a few spots. And I can't agree with you, John, either here. I think Virginia's the number 2 overall team.
Well, agree to disagree. I'm just going for quantity over quality in this case.
Yeah.
Now, I do agree with you somewhat, though, and I was going to get this as under the 4th overall team. I have Duke as number 3 overall, and this week I would have put Kansas on the 1 line and bumped Gonzaga down to the 2 line, just because when you look at that volume of top 25, top 50 wins, it just blows you out of the water. They are the best team in the best conference. And I think that is enough for them to be a 1 seed, even right now, and even over this 1-loss Gonzaga team.
I agree in one sense. If this Kansas team goes for the double, or even if they don't, even if they just finish first outright, and I don't know, losing the semis or the championship game of the Big 12, I do think the committee will put them up on the 1. Kansas's paper blows Gonzaga's away, and it's not even close. The one area where Gonzaga is going to be really strong, I think, is in the NABC rankings. And again, you can't really quantify that. For those that don't know, the NABC, it's 1 coach from every conference that ranks the top 15 teams in their geographic region. So it would be West, Midwest, South, and East. Again, I think Gonzaga is going to be ranked really high there, maybe number 1 overall in the West in the NABC rankings. And I don't know how much the committee will value that. I don't know how much I would value that. I think Kansas's paper is better. I think the committee will value Kansas more. I personally think Gonzaga is better. I would have them number 4 overall.
All right. Well, for our purposes for today, can we agree, I guess, to go Kentucky, Virginia, Duke, Kansas, or are we going to have a big fight on that?
No, I mean, I said Gonzaga, so I think we need to agree to do what I want and put Gonzaga on there.
John, you had Gonzaga on the 2 line also, is that?
Yes, I have
Yes, but I
Gonzaga
had
at
them on the
number
one
5
line. See,
overall.
that's the issue.
Well, I think that I mean, we have a consensus. We have
What?
two out of three of
What are
us
you? What?
think Virginia 2 and Duke 3, so I think that's where we're going to go, and then we'll
Yeah.
go with Kansas number 4 because
What?
John and I both
How?
agree that Kansas is a 1 seed.
Oh, you people are wrong.
And then
Everybody.
I think we all agree that Gonzaga should be number 5 overall, though. I don't know that we have any dispute there. And you
Right.
see that we do have a couple of technical difficulties here today, so every time we complete a seed line that we agree upon, we're going to refresh, they will appear. So you now see that the first 4 teams have appeared there. Beyond Gonzaga, David, let's go, John. You and I are the ones with the
What
East
the?
Coast here. So, who are the other 3 teams that you have on your 2 line?
Just because a man gets
Okay,
a rest.
below Gonzaga, I have Arizona number 6 overall, Wisconsin number 7, and Villanova number 8.
I agree with you on the 3 teams. I would have flip-flopped Wisconsin over Arizona, but I think it's a very, very close call there.
I would have had those same 3 teams as well. So.
Yep, I guess Arizona's being punished a little bit being in the Pac-12 this year.
Well, my argument here for why Wisconsin should be over Arizona really comes down again to, I think you're right, it comes down to the Pac-12. It's that, the big, right now Wisconsin's sitting there with 7 top 50 wins, although one of them is over Buffalo, so it's not even a team.
Let's not get too caught up in top 50 wins. Like, our committee does this every year. To beat, like, the 44th team at home is not the same as beating the 9th team on the road. It's not even close. So
right, but if we look at what you've done away from home, they do have, Wisconsin has a neutral court win over Oklahoma, a win at Iowa, a neutral court win over Georgetown. That's pretty good. Arizona has a neutral court win over San Diego State and a win at Stanford. I don't think that's quite as good as what Wisconsin has done away from home.
Yeah, Stanford and not quite as good are statements you're going to be hearing very frequently throughout the coming weeks.
Yeah, as we are recording this right now, Stanford is down by 15 points at home to UCLA. And just note to everybody, we are recording this right around 10 o'clock at night here on Thursday evening, so some of the late games tonight were not factored in. We may make a few changes before we get to a final bracket if there's any major upsets.
So they'll be factored into the bracket.
Yeah.
We'll change it afterwards.
And we'll let you know in a posting what we did. But I guess
I can also give you another devil's advocate argument for Wisconsin over Arizona. Wisconsin only has 1 bad loss this year against Rutgers. Arizona has 2 losses that are top 50 RPI, one at UNLV, one at Oregon State. I suppose that could be a tiebreaker between the 2.
I think that's true, especially because Rutgers is a really, really, really good team.
Oh,
better than what they were in March last year in the tournament.
All right, so John, are we going to go with Wisconsin over Arizona then?
Yes. So Gonzaga, Wisconsin, Arizona, Villanova.
Villanova, and that completes our 2 line, and we'll get it back up there in a second. And as we wait for it to be refreshed, we're going to move down to the 3 line next. And I will throw out my teams here. See if we've got that refreshed there, John. But my 4 teams, when we get to the 3 line, 2 from the ACC, 2 from the Big 12. What I have here is Louisville, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, and Iowa State.
Ooh, Oklahoma's way up there. They're kind of schizophrenic. Do you like them this high, even though they're schizophrenic?
I like them this high, and let me tell you why I like Oklahoma this high. And it's what we were just talking about, top 50 wins again, but they do have 7 top 50 wins, 4 of those away from home, at Tulsa, who's going to be in this field, at Texas, at Oklahoma State, and a neutral court win over Butler. And they even have a neutral court win over UCLA, which may end up being a tournament team by the end of the day, although they're not there right now.
Well, not by the end of today. Not
by the end of the day. The end of the day. The only bad loss they have was their loss at Creighton. If throw that aside, that 4 of their other 6 losses were against top 25 teams, all away from home.
What they lack in bad losses, they make up for in quantity of losses. UCLA.
I had Oklahoma as a protected seed, but I didn't have them as high on the 3 line because I have here in my notes they also have a few sub-50 losses against Washington on a neutral floor and also Kansas State at home.
Well, let me talk about that Washington loss for a second. That Washington loss was back when Washington was playing really good and when they were at full strength.
Yeah.
Washington, I think that, yeah, you could say that's a sub-top 50 loss. I think if you look at what that Washington team was that they played on December 20th, that was a top 50 team.
Right, and again, just a note to the viewers, all the dozens of them that are watching or listening. The committee is separated. There's 10 of them. They have 3 conferences each, and some have 4, where they're supposed to basically watch and report each week what's going on. So that will not be lost on the committee. Whoever has the Pac-12, I think it's Scott Barnes, who's also the chairman, by the way, is going to know and inform everybody else that Washington was at full strength for that game.
So, well, who else do we have here? I mean, besides this debate over Oklahoma, John, who are your other teams on this 3 line?
My 3 line I have at this moment Butler, Notre Dame, VCU, and Iowa State. And VCU, I also have, this was before their injuries to Briante Weber, and I think their other star, Trevion Graham, also aggravated an ankle injury lately.
Yeah, I'm not even close to agree on these two because of the injury. I mean, I think we both agreed on Iowa State and Notre Dame, I think, on this line. Butler, I had very close behind on this line, so I would not be offended by that if you want to push Oklahoma down.
Butler keeps getting better. Butler might win the conference tournament. I think they're going to drop a few, but like away from home, they are awesome. And even their losses have been close losses to really good teams away from home lately. Butler is really good, and their paper's really good.
Yeah, So I'm not offended by Butler on here. I'm surprised you don't have Louisville in here. Do you not think that they're worthy of this area here, John?
I have Louisville at the top of my 4 seed line.
Okay, so you have them close at least.
Yeah.
All right, so what I would propose we do here is go with those 4 teams being Notre Dame, Louisville, Butler, and Iowa State.
When does Louisville play Notre Dame? That's going to be a show. It always is. I mean, double overtimes and quadruple overtimes. That was turning into quite the showcase in the Big East.
Not till they only play once. It's not till March 4th. It's at Louisville.
Oh man, it's still going to be fun.
All right, so if we're going to go back to John here and see how we ended up with our 3 line. There they are. We went with Notre Dame, Butler, Louisville, and Iowa State. Now, the one team that I had mentioned already that did not get in yet in this was Oklahoma. I still would argue that they now belong on the top of the 4 line. The other teams that I think are in the consideration here, I still don't think VCU is at this point. I just think with the injuries, they are lower down. I would have Maryland, North Carolina, and Northern Iowa here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I could see Northern Iowa getting up this high, especially if they went out. And let me say this about Northern Iowa. It is really hard to win on the road in the Missouri Valley. I know they don't have a lot of tournament caliber teams, but what they do have is teams with really good home court records. If Northern Iowa goes through and can beat all of them or most of them, they're going to get a favorable seed.
Northern Iowa did get a win at SFA earlier in the year.
Yes, they're the only team that has won at SFA. They're probably the only team that will win at SFA. They'll get credit for that.
State is another team they've beaten that could also be in the tournament as well. I believe they're Summit leaders at the moment.
Right. So, and again, I mean, I just think that even if, and again, if you're enamored with top 50, top 100, Northern Iowa doesn't jump off the page, but when you look at them closely, they certainly do. And not to mention, off paper and on the court, this is a really good team. I think it's the best team Ben Jacobson's had since he's been there. They're fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean they are 2-1 against the top 50. They are
Yeah,
5-2 against the top 100. I mean those are numbers that gets thrown out there. Of
right.
those 5 wins, 3 of them are away from home. The neutral court win over Iowa, the win at SFA. Their losses were both road losses. One of them to a fully healthy VCU team.
In
Um,
overtime,
in
or was it one or two overtime?
double overtime,
Double
one of
overtime.
the best games I saw all season.
Yeah. So yeah, I would have them up that high. I really would. And I think the committee will too.
All right.
Okay.
John, was there anyone else that you had in this range here that we haven't just already discussed?
Okay, originally I had Louisville, but they're up on the 3 line. I had Oklahoma, West Virginia, and Maryland. But those would be the other teams I could think of that would be in that range.
Okay.
But
What about this North Carolina team? That's the one team that you did not mention that I had up here.
I had them as the top number 5 seed overall.
Yeah. I mean, this Carolina team, I know they've lost back-to-back games, but they were at Louisville and to Virginia. Um, I guess, I mean, a knock on them could be 2-6 against the top 50, but if you go then make it against the top 100, they are 9-6. So it's
Yeah.
with neutral court wins over Ohio State, UCLA, Florida, win at Clemson, win at NC State.
Right. One of the things about North Carolina, if proper use of timeouts were a criteria by the selection committee, I don't even think they would make the field. But since it isn't, I don't. It's hard to imagine as good as they've played, and as good as they've looked, not having them on the 4 line. But yeah, like you said, I mean, they look good. They've looked good against really good teams. Their losses haven't been bad, but they just didn't win any of them. How did they blow that at Louisville?
And let me address John, your team here that you brought up was West Virginia. I took a closer and closer look at their profile. They do not have a win right now away from home over anybody that would be in this field, and they only have 2 wins over anybody that is solidly in the field, and one of them is a home win over Oklahoma, and the other one's a home win over Wofford, who is solidly in the field as an automatic qualifier only. I'm missing the top of the profile here for West Virginia.
Yeah,
What they
I
lack
was.
in terms of name wins, they also have 10 overall wins away from home. If you look at their road and neutral record.
Yeah, but their wins away from home, they beat George Mason on a neutral court, VMI on a neutral court, Marshall on a neutral court, at Northern Kentucky, Boston College on a neutral court, at TCU, at Texas Tech.
What led them to play so many neutral court games against crappy teams?
It is pretty much a garbage away from home wins. The NC State win is okay. The win at Kansas State is okay, but they're not the type of wins that I think are even close to what North Carolina has. I don't even think they're in the same category as North Carolina.
Yeah, I kind of got to agree with Chad on West Virginia. And I've been a championing West Virginia for a while, but when you look at them more closely, God, they've struggled in some of their recent games.
All right, so if we go back to our field here, I know the teams that we've all agreed on, I think, is Oklahoma on this list. And I think we also all agreed on
Northern Iowa.
Northern Iowa and Maryland, I think, correct?
Yeah. Maryland's been struggling, too. They've been winning, but it hasn't been easy. Sweating out Penn State and Northwestern. I see Maryland, I mean, they're up there now, and I guess that's what we're doing, is if the season were to end today. I think Maryland's going to fall on their face a couple times between now and the end of the year.
I agree with you. I don't know that Maryland ends up in this protected seed range, and this is our last 4 protected seeds, but
Yeah.
For now, the question is, where are they right now? And I still think they're hanging in there.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
I think from the debate, David and I both agreed on Carolina, which outrules John by 2-1 on West Virginia.
Yeah.
Funny thing about
Sorry,
North
John.
Carolina this year, they look like a health spa. Look at 3 teams that have signature wins at North Carolina. One is Iowa, who is on the bubble, and then there's also Virginia, which had a nice bounce-back win against North Carolina. And
Yeah.
then who's the other one? Notre Dame also had a win at North Carolina.
And it's nice to see them serve the public the way that they are.
They're just trying to help their fellows out.
Yeah.
All right, so John, if you want to throw that 4 line in, we can begin our discussion of the 5 line, which
We have Oklahoma, Northern Iowa, Maryland, and North Carolina in that order.
I believe so. We'll let you make the final decision on those. I think we've decided the teams.
Yeah.
Since you're the one typing, you can make the final call on that.
Let's see.
Although, like we did discuss last week in my notes, especially about the bracket we built last week, I mean, the difference between being 15 and 16 on the S curve could be huge based on where you're playing.
Yeah.
It could end
Based
up,
on the locations.
because of locations, you may end up, instead of being in a situation where where you are a North Carolina with a chance to play in Charlotte or Columbus, you may be in North Carolina suddenly getting sent out to Seattle or Portland.
Or Jacksonville.
Or Jacksonville. Well, Jacksonville's not as bad for Carolina, but it could be for some of these other teams.
Although I think the only one within driving distance for North Carolina is that Charlotte sub-region. But
It's
at
only the
this
one
point,
within driving distance,
Virginia-
but I don't think it's as offensive for North Carolina fans if they have to go to Columbus or Pittsburgh or even Louisville. It's not like you have to do a major cross-country flight out to Seattle or out to Portland or even to Omaha, which is a bit of a haul from Carolina.
Yeah.
Over on the 5 line.
I think we should send them out there just because it would be funny.
The 5 line, I do agree with the 2 teams that John has mentioned that we have not put in yet, both VCU and West Virginia. I think this is where they both fall in here on the 5 line. I can't fight for them to fall any lower than this.
Right, and again, they haven't lost really yet. I mean, they did have to sweat out. Who was it? It sucks that they beat the other right here.
Your connection is not coming in good from jail right now, Greggs.
Yeah. Okay.
All right,
Well,
I think we got David back. We lost you there for a minute.
Crappy place. Oh, we did. Okay.
All right. Well, while we try to get David
Whenever you
reestablished
mention
here.
Paul Hewitt, you start to come in pretty bad.
Yeah, I think Paul Hewitt has cursed you, David, so we can't hear you. But
Okay.
yeah, but I'll run the
any
5.
better now?
Yeah. I think everything's good now.
I can hear you better.
Okay.
So we've already talked West Virginia and VCU on this line. My other 2 teams on this line would be Baylor and Utah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I can agree with you on
I like this.
Utah, but I would have had Wichita State ahead of Baylor at this point.
All right.
Ooh, I forgot about them.
All right. Well,
I think Wichita is better than you.
Yeah, I can concede that because while Baylor does have a couple of really big wins, they don't have anything away from home of note. And Wichita has, while they don't have the profile as some of these other teams because of the conference they're in, on the court, I think they are right up there. So I would concede that point to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we're agreed on West Virginia, VCU, Utah, and Wichita State.
Yeah, Utah is high in the rankings. I'm trying to. What is it that the voters like about them so much? I like this Utah team, and I had Utah as high as 2 or 3 on some of my seed lists recently. But man, I mean, what are they?
Yeah, one of Utah's issues is losing anything in the Pac-12 below Arizona. They did have a split at the Southern California schools, lost to UCLA. They did win handily at USC. I think that bumped them down a little bit.
My problem with Utah is they only have 1 win against a team that's solidly in the field right now, and that's their home win over Wichita State. That's it.
Yeah, and they barely got that one.
I mean, they don't have
They
any.
opened that up at the. Yeah.
No, that was a 69-68 win over Wichita State.
But Utah also has a win over South Dakota State, which we did give credit to Northern Iowa earlier.
Well, actually, John, I'm going to trump you on that because when we get down there, if we even debate it, South Dakota State lost to IP Fort Wayne tonight, and right now I would call North Dakota State as the champion of the summit. So.
After looking so good, this is under the radar stuff, but after looking so good.
North Dakota State picked up a win over Omaha. I think that's enough to temporarily have the Bison over the Jackrabbits. But again, yeah, you're right. That's under the radar, and we're getting way off.
That's Dayton bound.
Yeah. But so we're on the. I guess we're down to the 6th line here.
Yeah.
And let me also make one other note here as we go through the S curve.
Right.
Every team that I have in caps at this point would be the auto bid winner. Every team in lowercase would be at large.
Okay, yeah, and thank you. And the point here is that whoever is the highest ranked team, we're assuming is going to be the automatic bid winner, regardless of record. We're not going to simply, for example, give Tulsa the automatic bid out of the American because they have a better record than SMU right now.
Right.
Over on my teams for the 6th line, I still have this Baylor team, which we did not put in yet. My other 3 teams would be Oklahoma State, Arkansas, and Providence.
Oh, Providence. Oh, Providence. Oh, their good is so good, and their bad is as bad as anybody's in the field, including South Dakota State's.
Well, losing at home to Brown, hey,
yeah.
So what? But, they're coming off a huge win just last night at Georgetown, and, I mean, that solidifies them, I think, in my mind.
Yeah, that was a
good
great
thing about
game.
Providence. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying that was in Georgetown. It looked like the old Big East. Those two went at it. So, even though it's still the Big East.
Yeah, I was going to say in defense of Providence, they did have 2 bad losses, the Brown and the BC loss, but if you're going to lose those games, lose them early in the year.
Yeah.
Lose them early in the year and then make up for it by winning at Butler, winning at Georgetown, and having that neutral court win over Notre Dame. Yeah, I could forgive the Brown loss. I really do.
Those are 3 monster wins. I mean, that really is. So, yeah, I like Providence. It's just they're kind of hard to place because but I think this is about where they belong and about where the committee would have them.
Right. So who else are we discussing here? I mean, we've mentioned Baylor, we've mentioned Providence. I said Oklahoma State and Arkansas. I don't know, John. Do you have somebody else in mind?
Let's see. My 6th line, I have Providence, SMU, Georgetown, and Baylor. Although Georgetown is starting to lose a little bit of steam after losing, their 3rd game at home now.
Yeah, on the Georgetown note, it is because of the Providence loss at home last night. That's why I think they fall a little higher. And at this point, they only have one really quality win away from home, and that's a neutral court win over Indiana.
Yeah.
They just haven't. I mean, they have a lot of other wins away from home. Well, 4 others away from home, but they're over DePaul, Marquette, Creighton, and Florida. They're just not the quality wins away from home that you need to be up in this range.
Yeah. Now, most years those are like Marquette, Creighton, and Florida. You're talking about some high caliber wins most years, but not this year.
Yeah. Probably the best win of that bunch is at DePaul because nobody seems to be able to win at DePaul. I mean.
The basement is up in the attic. The best win out of that bunch is DePaul. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know we had talked earlier about Chris Holtman possibly being a Coach of the Year in the Big East. I think Oliver Purnell is also gaining some steam as well for the job.
He's done a fantastic job. You're right about that, John. I do not think DePaul gets into the NCAA tournament. In fact, I think they're going to miss it by a mile. But they are one of the most improved teams in the
I think we lost David again there for a second.
Yep, we've got to get him out of jail here.
Yeah, David locked in jail again, but
I mean,
I think we definitely lost him. We'll work on trying to get David back here for a minute. But John, who else do we have here besides, or have we decided on the 4?
You mean on the 6th line?
On the 6th line, yeah.
I think we have Providence, Baylor, SMU, Oklahoma State. Is that right?
Providence, Baylor.
I mean,
I think David's still trying to get through. I think we got a ghost of some sort here right now.
Sounds like Chewbacca's coming through my screen now.
All right, we will work on trying to fix David's audio problems, but let's address this
There with
SMU.
I would
Okay.
And I think as we type this, SMU and Cincinnati are both tied at 40 in the second half right now in Dallas.
Yeah, they are. And on this SMU profile, I'm not as keen on it because, in all honesty, I don't think they have a win. While they're playing as good as anybody in the country right now, and they don't have any bad losses, do they really have a win over anybody that is solidly in the field? I don't think they do. I mean, their best win is their only top 50 win is at Temple. Their other wins are Eastern Washington, at Michigan, Memphis, and Wyoming. Those are not the quality of wins I think the other teams would talk about at this level in the field are.
Yeah, I think the only other team they beat that would be considered an NCAA team at this point would be, eerily enough, Texas Southern. But as you pointed out, Temple, it's a top 50 RPI win, but I don't think they're an NCAA team at this point. But if they can hang on against Cincinnati, this would be their most notable win of the year by far.
All right, so well, if that's the case, then I think we've agreed on. Well, let's lock in on the list here again. I think we've agreed on Baylor, Oklahoma State, and Providence up here.
All right, let me go ahead and
And then the fourth team, you're leading SMU. I was leading Arkansas.
Okay, I had Arkansas on the 7 line right here. Let me see who else. Providence, Baylor, SMU.
So you're going to trump me and go with SMU, huh?
Well, the things you can do when you control
And
the
David back, by
computer.
the way.
All right. Or Greg, is he back in?
David, no, David's not quite back yet. So John says you trumped me on the SMU argument. So let me go ahead and run through my 7 line here. I do still have Arkansas at the top here now. My other 3 teams would be Indiana, Iowa, and Georgetown, who you had previously mentioned.
Let's see. I agree with you for Arkansas, Indiana, and Georgetown.
Okay.
I barely have Iowa in my field at this point.
All right.
I suppose the other team I would have argued on the 7 line would be San Diego State.
San Diego State, I do have 1 line lower on my 8 line. That doesn't offend me too much. But the Iowa thing here now, they have 1 at North Carolina. They've swept Ohio State. They also have a win at Michigan.
Just went final about, 2 hours ago?
And I think we're trying to get David back here. I see his ceiling right now. And
they treat you like it's a prison when you're in jail. Cut out your freaking...
David, welcome back. While you were gone,
taxpayer, can't they get a better internet connection in here?
While you were gone, we put Davidson into the field.
Oh, well, good, because they were going to be my next team. And I was about to talk about Davidson, and then miraculously my internet connection went out. So we have them on the 6th line?
Yeah. What we ended up doing was we completed the 6th line with Providence, Baylor, Oklahoma State. I argued that should have been Arkansas. John trumped me and threw SMU in there instead on the 6th line.
SMU in a dogfight here with Cincinnati, and this would probably not affect this seed list, but maybe where they appear in the bracket tomorrow. Right. If Cincinnati were to get this win, God, this would be huge.
The teams we've been discussing now for the 7 line are Arkansas, Indiana, and Georgetown, who I think John and I both agreed on. I had Iowa here, and
this seems kind of high for both Indiana and Iowa to me.
Well, and what my problem when you get to this line here is not, wow, this looks high for these teams. It's when you start looking at what's below them, there's not much left that's really solidly in. I think we're at the top edge of the bubble right here on the 7 line, just showing how big the bubble is this year. I think anybody from here on down could easily fall right out of the field with 2 or 3 losses in a row.
Yeah, I realize they had a really, set your head on fire bad loss tonight, but this was about the range up until this week that I had LSU in.
Yeah.
I don't know how far you guys had them down, but
Well, John had San Diego State up here. I have them on my 8 line. LSU I also have on my 8 line after the loss tonight. I did have them right up here before the loss
yeah.
tonight.
And then
But do
San
we have a
Diego's.
consensus on the 7 line yet?
Well,
Yeah,
I don't think.
I could go with San Diego State.
All right, so I guess we'll go with San Diego State as the fourth and final team on the 7 line.
So who does that make? Arkansas, Georgetown,
Ar-
Indiana, and San
Arkansas,
Diego?
Georgetown, Indiana, San Diego State will be our 7 line.
All right, let me make that change. That's going to be San Diego.
I would still carry.
All caps, the Mountain West.
All right, and so John's going to be refreshing that in a second. As he does, I'll just throw out there my 8 line teams. Iowa, who we did not put in, I would still carry down. LSU, who we just mentioned. The other 2 teams that I'd look here on the 8 line are Ohio State, and surprisingly a little bit, I like this Ole Miss team moving up and up the bracket right now.
I could get with. I'm starting to like Ole Miss more and more. God, if they just won that game in Kentucky. Oh man.
This team has now won 4 straight. They just beat Texas A&M. They won at Missouri. It's a road win. They have a win at Arkansas. They have a neutral court win over Cincinnati. They do have 2 bad losses, I guess, a home loss to TCU and a home loss to Charleston Southern. But
I don't know how bad the TCU loss is. Charleston Southern is pretty. I mean, we're talking about a team outside the CIT. Well, no, they may make the CIT, but by NCAA tournament standards, nothing against Charleston Southern. That's a bad loss to lose to them at home. So,
John, who do you have here on your 8 line?
I see. I mean, I think we alluded to this earlier. It's almost like throwing darts at a board once you get to the 7 line.
yeah.
Right now I have Cincinnati, Tulsa, Stanford, Colorado State.
I would pretty vehemently disagree with you on the Stanford, the Colorado State, and the Tulsa picks, and I guess where to start with those. But Tulsa, I still think this is not a good Tulsa team, and I'm only having them in my field at all based on being undefeated in their conference now, 10-0.
They picked up their 7th true road win tonight.
But 7 true road wins against 7 teams that 95% of the country could beat on the road. So
Yeah, well, tonight at Houston, I think as small as our audience is, they had a smaller one in Houston tonight.
That was what, 200 or 300 people attending that game tonight?
I don't know what the official attendance was, but the actual attendance was about 200. If it was that, it was a sparsely attended game.
You mentioned Stanford also. Stanford is playing like total garbage the last few days. They are getting their butts kicked right now as we speak by UCLA. They lost at Washington State, which is inexcusable.
Washington's improved. Ernie Kent's got it going on.
I just think that this, and they're about to get swept on the season by a UCLA team that's not in right now, and they only have one really good win, and that was at Texas, and Texas is sliding down the bubble too here.
Yeah, have we pulled out Texas yet?
No,
no, we have not.
Okay.
I don't think Texas is close to this 8 line either. I don't think they're.
Yeah.
I think we're still a couple lines too high for Texas. Colorado State, I at least see that argument, but not so much after the loss, after getting swept by Wyoming this week and losing at Boise State.
Boise State is a team that I barely have on the radar at the moment.
I don't have them anywhere near my radar.
Wyoming is bad for Colorado State here.
Why can't Leon Rice get it going there? I really liked him. I really thought he was going to have Boise State inside the bubble almost every year, and it hasn't happened yet. I don't know. They're certainly not there this year.
All right. Well, so do we have any type of consensus here on our 8 line then? Other than
that, the teams are bad at this point. Yeah, the consensus is we need to go back to 64.
I think the consensus is we got to go to 32.
Yeah.
Did we agree on Cincinnati as a team on the 8 line?
I would. Oh, they had such an awful. After leading for 39 and a half minutes, just blowing at East Carolina. They've played remarkably well tonight. I guess if you've been watching this game as we've been recording this, really strong showing tonight against an SMU team that is both very good and tough to beat at home.
Yeah, but as we speak right now, though, without this game going final, and it's still 8 minutes away from a very close game here,
Yeah.
all Cincinnati has done in terms of quality wins is a home win over San Diego State and a home win over SMU. That's it, and that's just not enough for me, especially when you throw in the loss at East Carolina.
Yeah.
I have Cincinnati on my 11 line right now.
Yeah, okay, but you do have them inside the bubble. Well, it's
Yes.
not easy to win at East Carolina. East Carolina plays half their games there, and they have a hell of a time winning there.
Yeah. Now, if I was going to, I mean, again, my teams here were Iowa, Ole Miss, Ohio State, and LSU. My next teams below them would be likes of Seton Hall, Dayton, Texas A&M. Those are the teams that I'm thinking in the 8-9 seed range.
Now, was that before or after LSU lost to Auburn at home tonight?
That is after the loss to LSU.
Yeah.
After the loss, I have LSU. I had LSU up on my top of my 7 line. I dropped them all the way to the bottom of my 8 line.
How sure are you about Dayton? This is a question for both of you. Because I'm kind of apprehensive about just. I mean, they have a lot of decent wins. They don't really have a lot of good wins, and they are so thin. And again, I think Archie Miller is doing his best coaching job ever, including the Elite Eight run, because of what he's done with such limited personnel. Having said that, they've had to sweat out some games against some very average to mediocre range teams. Now, they've won them all, but I mean, aside from that, avoiding bad losses, have they really done anything to indicate that they belong this high and this far inside the bubble? And do you think they'll be able to maintain it?
Are we talking about Dayton or LSU?
Dayton.
Well, Dayton specifically, but you could say the same things about it. Well, LSU doesn't have the personnel issues. Dayton just doesn't have any players. It's remarkable that they've done as well as they have.
I like this Dayton team right now. Yeah, they do. I mean, they do have a neutral court win over Texas A&M, who is another team I have right in the mix here for a bid. The Ole Miss team that we just discussed. No real bad losses. Their worst loss is a neutral court loss to UConn, and that was back on November 21st when UConn was still
under the impression that they might actually be worth a shit.
And being touted as the defending national champions as opposed to the most disappointing team in the country. So,
yeah. Oh, that goes to Nebraska.
And now they possess a triple-digit RPI as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure
I can see Dayton up this high. I mean, yeah.
All right. So, do we have any team that we all four agree on for the 8 line?
I can agree on LSU because they at least have some notable wins in terms of, was it top 50 RPI?
Yeah.
At West Virginia, which I think they're the only team that's won there besides
West Virginia.
Yep. They've also beaten Georgia, won at Ole Miss, which was, I think, another team that we put on the 8 line.
How about Ohio State here? I mean, they have the big win over Maryland. They've beaten Indiana at home. Not too much on the road other than at Minnesota, but no bad losses. Not even the loss at Purdue last night is a bad loss because we're going to have a discussion about Purdue here in a little bit.
Yeah, I could see them up here. Oh, God. Well, because of Chad's stupid bracketing rules, we can't have what would have been a great 8-9 matchup. Or could we? I don't know who's on the 9 line, but Dayton's out of the question. But is there another team from Ohio that might be on the 9 line?
I would have Dayton on the 9 line, in fact.
Yeah, but they can't play. Well, could they play Ohio State with the new points of emphasis? I know they played them last year, and they don't like tournament rematches.
Yeah, no, they probably would avoid an Ohio State 8-9 game. If Xavier is on the 9 line, though, an Ohio State Xavier game, absolutely possible.
Yes, it definitely is. And then we'll have Cincinnati Dayton also on the 9. It'll just be like an Ohio Valley festival, and they'll be playing for the right to get blown out of the place by the number 1 seed.
It'll feel like the Great Midwest days if Cincinnati and Dayton faced each other.
Right.
Okay, so I know we've agreed on LSU now. Do we agree on an Ohio State pickup here?
I think so, for the reasons you just mentioned. No bad losses, not much away from home, but again, we're getting down into a range to where everyone's going to have something that smells bad about them.
Okay. Well, John, who else do you want to throw out here for this 8 line? Because I think we got to move. We got to pick 4 teams and move on here.
Let's see. I think we had come up with Ole Miss, Iowa, Ohio. Well, Iowa is going to have those 2 wins over Ohio State, which help their cause now.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. I would like. I mean, Ole Miss and Iowa, I would agree with as the other 2 teams on this line.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right. Then we've got 4 teams: Ohio State, LSU, Ole Miss, and Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And let me also double check our at-large count at the moment. We should have 21 teams at large and 11 auto bid winners through this point.
Yep,
Yeah.
we're good on it. I'm double checking you here too, so we've got it going.
Yeah.
So our 9 line now, I'll throw out my 4 9-line teams. I mentioned a couple of them earlier though: Seton Hall, Illinois, Dayton, and Texas A&M.
Whoa, Illinois!
I knew that Illinois pick was gonna
Whoa.
raise some eyebrows.
Okay, I am really.
Especially since 2 of their top players have been suspended now for Illinois.
But they're coming
There's
off.
that in. Yeah, go ahead, Chad.
I'm just looking at a team that has 2 top 15 wins, 1 away from home, and no really bad losses.
But a lot of fairly.
A lot of mediocre losses, and
Yeah.
I may have overrated them. In which case, in fact, I'll look at them a little closer. I would throw them off this line and go with Xavier as my 4th team here instead.
Yeah, Xavier's got issues, but so does everybody else. One of the things about Xavier is their lack of, I mean, just their lack of production away from home. I mean, losing to, I think it was UTEP, who won't be in the field on a neutral floor, losing to Auburn, who won't be in any NIT at all away from home. They did get the huge win earlier this week to Creighton. Now, had it not been for the Creighton loss, we would have probably had them in the 7 range, 6, 7. But I think it's almost better, just because of the emphasis on road wins, to lose at home to Creighton and beat Georgetown on the road than lose to Georgetown on the road and win at home at Creighton. I still think they come out ahead. I could live with Xavier on the 9 line. And of course,
Creighton is still going to be an eyesore on there.
Yeah.
John, we lost this screen here. We got something else that's come up here instead.
Uh-oh. All right.
Yeah.
Let me try this again.
Those John's committee notes?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay, can you see it now?
yeah, we've
Yeah.
got now, and we see that you've already put Seton Hall and Xavier in on this line.
Is Dayton in yet?
No, there are 2 more spots open on the 9 line. I would argue Dayton and Texas A&M are those 2 teams.
Yeah. What about Cincinnati? I mean, I think.
I can make, as we do this, we're 5.5 minutes away from the end of this Cincinnati SMU game. Cincinnati is up by 4 points. They win this game, I would agree they're there.
Okay.
They don't win this game. I think they're down another line, and
Yeah.
we gotta judge this as of right now.
Right. And again, I would agree with that. If they win this game, I think they go up to the 9. This would be a really impressive road win. I mean, to offset their ridiculous road loss over the weekend.
Okay,
Now let me go back to one point that Griggs made earlier. St. John's and Xavier still both have to play twice. This may be one of those situations where it's probably best if the road team wins each of those games.
Yeah.
Xavier needs road wins in the worst way. St. John's, they need any win that they can get.
yeah, I think St. John's has a lot more problems than Xavier does right now, though. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they have Steve Lavin as a coach. I mean, that's just something I don't see them rectifying by the end of the year.
Well, maybe he'll go out on leave again.
Yeah.
All right, so we agree here on A&M and Dayton as these last 2 teams?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can agree on that.
All right, so we'll put those 2 up, and as John gets them in on the 10 line here, I will throw out Illinois again. My other teams I would knock out for the 10 line here are Stanford, Georgia, and Colorado State. I know Stanford and Colorado State, John, you like them even better than this, so.
Okay, Chad, I have to ask you this question because I know you know the answer. You know that the committee will overvalue Tulsa because of their 7 true road wins, 6 of which have come against teams with winning records at home.
Yes.
Will the real committee put them on this line? I think this is about where the real committee would have a team like that.
I tell you where I put Tulsa and was on the 11 line, but inside the first 4, not having to play in Dayton. Can I
Yeah.
could I see the committee put him on the 10 line? Absolutely. I absolutely could see
Yeah.
it happen. I'd agree with you.
Yeah, I think this is where the committee will have them. And again, we still haven't resolved this. Are we acting as if we are the committee, or are we trying to guess the committee? I personally think it's more fun to act like we are the committee.
I think we're kind of acting like we are the committee, but also
Okay.
using
Well, then move Tulsa down.
but
Very good.
we're saying though, hey, listen, this is these are the principles that the committee would use. This is what the real committee would look at, and this is how we
Right.
feel.
The real committee would overvalue Tulsa because of the 7 road wins, including the one tonight that took place in front of 58 people.
You see, I don't necessarily 100% agree with that. While I said I could see them on the 10 line, on the other hand, when you're looking at this Tulsa team here, you've got to look at a 120 strength of schedule, as high as anybody you're talking about for an at-large bid.
And that's without factoring the loss to Southeast Oklahoma State.
Yeah. 120 strength of schedule without that loss. If you factor in that game, it's about a 160 strength of schedule.
Yeah.
And so I think they could very well throw them in the first 4 as well. So I kind of ended up putting them right dead in the middle on the 11 line, but not in the first 4.
So do we have a consensus on the 10 line then?
Yeah, I believe so.
We do. I know we like Stanford and Colorado State here, definitely.
Well, I really don't like Stanford, but I guess we'll put them on here.
Yeah, Georgia, I think we agreed on.
Yeah, I like this Georgia team, partly because I said before the beginning of the year that I thought they'd be good, and I consider Georgia a testament to my brilliance.
And the other team I said was Illinois. I don't know if you two agreed with them being at this point even.
I don't even have Illinois in the field at this point.
I mean, after that, maybe Texas is the next team I would mention. Or
I would have Texas at Illinois. I forgot about them.
Texas or Cincinnati would be the other 2 teams I consider here.
Because I think right now we have Stanford, Colorado State, Tulsa, and Georgia. So
I don't think we have Tulsa.
We did not agree on Tulsa. I would go Georgia and Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And Cincinnati. All right. We do not have a problem on that.
It's Rick Barnes' home away from home, the bubble.
Oh, speaking of Rick Barnes, look at some of his coaching tree that's going to be on the 11 line. Frank Haith at Tulsa and Larry Shyatt at Wyoming.
Yeah. Well, we're not quite there yet.
Company.
Yeah.
Here comes our 10 line. We'll get that refreshed here in a second. When we get to the 11 line here, unless somebody wants to make an argument for Old Dominion, what we'll have is 3 regular teams, and then our first 4 teams on the 11 line.
Okay. Well, I mean, Old Dominion's an automatic, so they wouldn't be.
Well, you may want to argue that they belong on the 11 line. That's why I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't think they do.
They need to win out.
So what I'd say is let's talk about the first 3 teams on the 11 line first, which will be our teams that avoid the first 4.
I think Tulsa's definitely in this.
I think Tulsa's here. I think we need to put Texas in here.
Yeah.
And the third team, again, I'm going to throw out Illinois. I know you two don't agree with that. If you don't want to agree with me on Illinois, I'd argue Michigan State as the next team up.
Ooh, I like Illinois more than Michigan State.
But I suppose if I'm looking at Illinois here, they do have the win over Maryland at home, and they have Baylor on a neutral floor. Where was that game played?
The Illinois-Baylor game? Where was that? Was that in one of those... I remember watching that.
Las Vegas?
I think it was. I remember watching it. I just don't remember where it was.
That game was in Las Vegas, yes, at the Orleans Arena.
Yeah. The one with the regulation court, so...
So Illinois you would have as the last team before we get to the playing games.
That's what my argument would be. And
I can agree with that.
okay, so we're going to go then Texas, Tulsa, and Illinois.
Let me give a refresh here because that's going to put us at 32 at-large teams.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. 32? Yeah, that's right. So, well...
Yep, and then the next spot here, the final spot on the 11 line, will be our first of our first four games.
There's 37 at-larges, so do we have 5 or 4 more at-larges to go?
No, David, there's 36 at-larges.
And 32
like I said, there's 36 at-larges. with the new
remember they added the American Athletic Conference in.
I was just making sure you were paying attention.
They also added the Patriot League, I think, at one point.
Oh, yeah, it definitely exists.
Okay.
I hate both of you.
Oh, come on, let's not pick on the Patriot League. I mean, we should be thanking Lehigh for their win against Duke a couple of years ago.
Yes, it was fantastic.
That was wonderful.
And not to mention Bucknell's also had, I think, 2 wins in their history.
Yep.
One against Kansas and one against Memphis.
All right.
Yeah.
We're at our final 4 at-large teams. Here's my final 4 at-large teams. Michigan State, Miami, George Washington, and Wyoming.
I like those 4 teams. I would almost... God, Miami. Oh, Lord, what do you do with them?
That's you put them in the first 4. I think that's exactly what you do with them.
Well,
you won at Duke. You won at Duke.
Well, I mean, if we just look at the Duke win, I think they belong on the 2 line.
Yeah, but if we look at the Kentucky loss, they belong in the CBI.
Yeah. Oh, God.
My initial thought is I would agree with you on 3 of the 4, Wyoming, Miami, and Michigan State. I was thinking of St. Mary's, but if I had to flip a coin between St. Mary's and GW, I probably would pick the Colonials because of their win in Hawaii against Wichita State back in December.
Yeah, they have more wins. You know, God, GW has just...
Can you qualify this St. Mary's thing? I do not even have them. I went through a list of my next 14 or 15 teams out. They were not even on that list for me. They have one top 100 win. It's a home win over BYU. They have losses at home to Pepperdine and at home to Northern Arizona. I don't think they're even close.
Yeah, I was big on them about a week ago, and then they have just collapsed ever since we started talking about them.
They've got a 126 strength of schedule, a non-conference strength of schedule of 155. They've done nothing in this profile that's anything that the committee would like.
I think ever since we set the precedent last year because of how many games NC State almost won.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not going to ever assume a team is going to get in for close losses. And they didn't lose a close game to Gonzaga. They got their butts kicked.
Yeah.
They got their butts kicked they lost by 6 to St. John's. They lost by 11 to Boise State. Their only close loss was the game to Northern Arizona, which is a game they should have won easily.
Yeah, I don't have St. I mean, I would have GW way ahead of St. Mary's.
Yeah, I'll tell you that that my teams that I would have as the next 4 teams that just missed out, St. John's, but I don't think it's a tournament team right now.
They're not.
Purdue.
Purdue, okay, they are thundering down the stretch. Purdue's going to get into the field, and I was the first one to call him, as you recall from the podcast last night.
Purdue. I have Tennessee still hanging around there. Beyond that, I'd start looking at someone like Valparaiso just because I hate the rest of the teams entirely.
Long Beach, I'm telling you, here they come. Their RPI is going to be in the top 4.
I have Long Beach in the field as an automatic. I have Long Beach in as an automatic, so...
They're not there yet, but if they win out, they're going to have an RPI top 40. They're going to be an outright first-place team, and they're going to have a relatively rough strength of schedule with some notable wins. If Long Beach wins out, I think you can make a case for them. They're not there yet. To be honest, I don't think Purdue is either. I just think that the way Purdue is playing, they're going to get there. Yeah. I think Purdue will end up in the field and inside the bubble.
Well, let me just throw out here for really quickly. I mean, these are the rest of the teams I even looked at, and I don't even think any of them are as good as Purdue.
Valparaiso is not close.
Yeah,
I know their record's bloated. but they haven't. Okay, but who
But
else
but
do
this
you
is
have?
this is the rest of the teams we have. NC State, who is playing like garbage. Temple, who is barely worth looking at. Washington, who's falling apart. Kansas State, who is one game over 500.
I never liked them.
Alabama,
No.
Clemson, UCLA, who might be starting, the only one that started to climb up, although they're about to blow this huge lead they had on Stanford here.
Yeah.
Davidson, BYU, Michigan, Oregon, Rhode Island. There's no one else to even think about besides Purdue. That's what I'm getting at.
What about Nebraska? 10 miles.
Exactly. What about them?
I hate to break this to you, David, but Tim Cluse is going to have a better chance of making the NCAA tournament than Tim Miles this year.
Oh my! No, that can't be.
All right. So have we agreed on our first four games? I think we've agreed on the teams. And so, John, if you want to throw those in.
Yeah.
I think we can agree on the teams. Now it's just a matter of the order because we have Wyoming, Miami, Michigan State, and GW.
We'll let you be the tiebreaker on that since you've got the controls.
I would have I like Miami the most and Wyoming the least out of those four. Michigan State and GW are kind of interchangeable.
I'd agree with David on exactly that.
Yeah.
So you have Wyoming, Miami at 11.
No,
Is that what you're saying?
no, it's a ladder, John. Yeah, it's keep in mind it's 1 versus 2 and 3 versus 4 because it's essentially what line are we on here? 11.
11.
It's 11A versus 11B and then 12A versus 12B.
Yeah, I don't agree with the format, but that is what the principles and procedures say, and that is the way that they set up the bracket. I would think you'd take the best first four and have them play the worst first four, but
right, but
that's not what to do.
Right, yeah.
All right. So what we'll do is, I know we're really kind of past our deadline here for the time, so just wanted to quickly run down here. I'll shoot off the just and we'll get these added in for the bracket, but I'll shoot off the.
And again, under the radar covered these teams if you want a more in-depth analysis. Otherwise, we're just going to start throwing them in.
Yeah. Okay. So we have Michigan State versus GW versus Maine. The three teams of the 12 line. We have as Old Dominion, Green Bay, and Stephen F. Austin.
Yeah.
And these are all automatic bid winners from here on out.
And I think Old Dominion out is the closest to the bubble out of those three.
And I'll tell you, actually, when we go back to this, when I built my complete seed list, including the teams that did not make the field, I actually had as the very next team after Wyoming on my seed list as Old Dominion, which means that they are on the verge of getting back into at-large consideration again.
Right. I mean, they're close now, so okay. So that's the 12.
Okay, then the 13 line, I have Wofford, Murray State, Long Beach. I went with Eastern Washington on the 13 line. With that win at Indiana, really boosted them up, in my opinion.
Yeah, it certainly does, especially if they win out. If they go for the double, which they would pretty much have to, I think that lands them on the 13.
And they just picked up a huge win tonight at Montana. One of their toughest road games of the season.
Right.
Then moving down to the where are we on the 14 line here?
Yeah.
The teams are Buffalo, who is now back in the tie for the lead in the MAC. Yale, who is now my pick out of the Ivy. High Point from the Big South, and Iona/Tim Cluess from the Metro Atlantic.
I actually starting to like this Iona team a little more. I mean, I think they're on this line. I would probably have them at a High Point, but again, same line.
Yeah. 15 line, Bill and Mary, who suffered a bad loss tonight at College of Charleston, but still is leading.
That is atrocious. That is horrible. But okay, yeah.
Florida Gulf Coast, Georgia Southern out of the Sun Belt, who picked up a huge home win over Georgia State tonight to maintain their lead in the conference.
I really thought that was going to be your game of the night, the Georgia Southern Georgia State game. I didn't get to see it being in jail. Like I don't have full access to my streaming here. How'd that game go? Well, I was really curious to watch that game.
Well, given that it was a Sun Belt game and therefore not streamed anywhere that any living people could see it, I have no idea how it went. All I know is the final score. So it was a close game, though. Georgia Southern pulled it out. Final team on the 15 line was North Carolina Central. On the 16 line, the non-first four teams, Texas Southern and Albany. while the first 4 teams will be North Dakota
Yeah.
State, New Mexico State, Bucknell, and St. Francis Brooklyn. That would complete the list. So we will get that up onto the site in a bracket. Any other comments here? Anything else we want to discuss? I'll start with you, John.
Well, now that we're at the midpoint of the season, it's become midterms. It's the dog days of the year. We're seeing lots of teams in the bubble range losing games inexplicably.
Yeah.
They still have 3 or 4 more weeks to have their resumes, so we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
And David, any chance of getting out of jail by the time of our next podcast, or are we going to still see you locked up there?
I don't know. I'm hoping to be out tomorrow night so I can get the bracket posted. If we're not able to get it up in the morning, we'll certainly have it on tomorrow night before Saturday. So, but we'll have, the seeds, you just don't know the bracket yet.
Yeah, and again, there might be a few last-second adjustments here. Stanford did not come back on UCLA, so we may take a quick look after we go off the air of what if Stanford might slide down a few spots, and Cincinnati is still beating SMU. So
yeah, it looks like Cincinnati's going to win this. They're up 7 with 20 seconds to go.
Okay. Well, on that note, then have a great evening, everybody. We'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Oh, and I got to stop this. There we go.